Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crossroads on Faith. This is Raffy Gutierrez. And today's topic is a continuation actually from my topic last week, which is if God is everywhere, how can the devil be anywhere? So I think I struck a chord with some of the viewers, and quite honestly, I really felt that what I said last week was not complete because there were still a lot of ideas that I wanted to share with the wide audience we have on this channel. And before I continue, I want to thank everybody who has been watching, who has been liking, and most importantly, sharing these videos to their friends and families and enemies that you feel like maybe our content can provide some insight and guidance to a deepening and perhaps greater appreciation for their faith, whatever it is you believe in, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, atheist, Muslim, whatever you believe in. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, in my book, what counts the most is how you live and how you treat other people. Okay? So let's go on back to the topic. My topic today and the title of this particular talk is going to be a little bit controversial, especially if you are a mainstream evangelical Christian. This might really hit some of your nerves. Okay? So just throwing that out there. So my my title or the title for my talk today is The Devil in the Context of Mainstream Christianity is Nothing More Than a Convenient Excuse to Blame the Evils and the Bad Things in this World. If you want a shorter title, The Devil is a Convenient Excuse. So, what prompted me to continue the topic on the devil? So those of you who did not watch that video yet, please click on that video to have a deeper understanding and maybe appreciation of why I decided to continue the talk on the devil. So if you look at again God in as far as how the mainstream theists define God as being an omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent being. Those three attributes forming basically the entire nature of God really begs us to think, if God is everywhere, how can something like the devil be anywhere? Okay, if God's presence permeates the entirety of the multiverse, every single atom, even in the realm of non-existence, if you want to become philosophical, God is there. Okay, because God can it being somebody or something that can do everything or anything, he can be present also where it is impossible to be present. He can also be not present. Okay, whatever. So, but the point is, if we strictly stick to the definition of the devil being this guy called Satan, fallen angel with horns and lurks around like a lion to tempt people or cause havoc in the world however way that the devil can, just does not fit in the nature of God. So I would like to challenge those that really believe that there is an evil figurehead head that is called Satan, that is an evil that is perceived to be directly opposed or the opposite of God. So there will be several points that I will cover that will hopefully strengthen my argument against the existence of a personified evil, which is what Christians call Satan or Lucifer, the fallen angel. So first up is, how can God, being the ultimate source of everything, have an opposite? There can be, I really believe that if the Christians or the mainstream Christians who believe God's nature being omnipotent, omnipresent, right, as the very nature of God, cannot possibly equate or say that this being of that infinite nature has an opposite. So what I'm trying to say is, if Satan is God's opposite, then does that mean that Satan is also omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent? Does Satan, being God's opposite, also have God's powers, the same as God's abilities, except that he is evil? So maybe to better understand, if you can imagine a metaphor of a superhero and a supervillain. So if, like in the DC world, you have Superman, so his opposite would be like a General Zod, right? Or in the Marvel universe, you have Thanos, and then on the opposite side, you have Thor, or the Avengers, and combine their powers, or the X-Men, etc. So I know you might be thinking, how can I even put God in the same, and Satan in the same level as superheroes? Well, that's the thing. How can we say that somebody or something or someone like God has an opposite? At this point, mainstream evangelical Christians or Catholics who really believe in the devil might argue, well, that's what the church says, that's what the Bible says. The devil exists in the way that we were taught to believe that the devil exists. Well, that's exactly why I'm challenging that the teachings that you believe in. Because you have to question, you have to ask deeper and more profoundly why something or someone like Satan can exist when there is something, somebody, or someone like God. Okay? So I will draw a little bit from my Buddhist side, because Buddhists actually believe in demons and devils, but they are more in the Buddhist teachings or philosophy, beings of other dimensions that are basically negative or chaotically drawn to. Okay, so in Buddhism, devils and demons are beings that basically causing trouble or making people do bad things, almost in the same way that Christians or mainstream Christians believe their devils and demons to be in their theology. But the key difference between devils and demons in Buddhism and Christianity. In Buddhism, there is no absolute devil or demon. There is no Satan. There is no ultimate evil that is the reason why evil exists in the world. In Buddhism, Buddhists are basically taught, at least on a baseline, fundamental level of Buddhism, evil is basically caused by acting out of ignorance and speaking out of ignorance and causing and inflicting harm upon others. There is no Satan in Buddhism that Buddhists can say, the reason why I did such and such bad things is because there was an evil being that caused me to do a bad thing. Bad spirits in the Buddhist context can influence our actions as Buddhists, but ultimately it is up to the Buddhist to decide whether such an evil spirit will actually have an impact on what we eventually do. Then you might argue at this point, saying that the Christians are the same thing, that Satan can only tempt us, but ultimately we have to decide whether we will do something good or do something bad. So if that is the case, if ultimately the actions that we do are based upon the choices we make, then it even further drives the point that the ultimate evil, Satan, really has no place, I would say, doesn't really exist in the first place. Because if there was an ultimate evil that can actually make people do bad things, and when I say make, forces you, like I have no control over what I do, like Satan took, like those who say that they're possessed, then obviously it disrupts the very teachings of free will, right? And again, challenges how a demon can possess, how Satan can possess me when God is supposed to be permeating every cell and part of my being. If God is everywhere, how can the devil be anywhere? So this makes me go to my next point, that Satan was a necessary invention by the church, by the early Christians, to have a convenient excuse to blame for the evils that they do and for the evils that happen in this world. Whether it's a bad typhoon that the devil caused, or an earthquake, whatever, a calamity, famine, or your own actions, right? Instead of, here in the Philippines, there is, or maybe this is also prevalent elsewhere in the world, where, there are many believers in Christianity, that when they do something bad, there is a huge proclivity to say that the devil tempted me. I was tempted. The flesh is The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, they say. So it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense that the devil is truly nothing more than a convenient excuse for the actions that we should not have done. Why? Because if you really believe in God, if you really love God, the devil should be the least of your problems, right? Or our problems. You should act in a way that shows there is God, that God is real in your life. Instead of saying, oh, I cheated on my wife, or I hurt that poor little dog on the street because Satan told me to hurt my wife or or that dog on the street. Or Satan, tempted me to continue doing this very bad action or this very bad vice that destroyed my life, my family. No, there is no Satan. You were just acting stupidly or ignorant, out of ignorance, not really understanding and knowing what the consequences of your actions were. And if you knew what the consequences were and you still acted the way you did, then you're just being plain, blatantly stupid. There is no devil that to blame. Because most Christians will say that the most that the devil can do is tempt anyway. There are Christians who probably say that, no, I wouldn't say, most Christians say that the greatest lie that the devil wants you to believe it, he doesn't exist. I think the greatest lie, if I want to challenge that statement, is that mainstream Christianity, whether the biblical theologians or the church, wants to make sure you believe in this Satan, because that is how they propagate the fear, especially the fear of hell. That if you do evil, you will spend eternity with Satan. But you really think about it, right? If you go past all these really difficult to fathom claims or teachings that Satan is really nothing more than a doormat to wipe our feet on when we have no one else to blame. Just a little bit segue. Then some of you might argue, what about those who were possessed by demons and devils who clearly show that or were proven to have been possessed? I can argue to the point that, okay, they were possessed by an evil spirit, yada yada yada, and they got better of themselves because their souls were pushed back in somewhere in their consciousness and an evil spirit. Okay, let's say that's actually possible. But that does not prove Satan, an all-permeating evil. Okay? Maybe an evil spirit, because you were just too weak. I don't know why or how anyone gets possessed by an evil spirit. But even diabolical possession does not prove an absolute evil. Okay? So an absolute evil implies that the same attributes we give God is what we need to give that evil entity. Right? To imply that God has an opposite evil, the good of God has an opposite evil. Satan in this context means Satan is also omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, which is not the case. unless that's what you believe. So does Satan know everything that's going to happen as well? Is Satan everywhere? So if Satan is has the same powers as God, then doesn't that kind of make him God too? All right, anyway, so now I'm really spinning off the topic, but these are the things you guys have to think about. How can the devil exist except apart from the formation of the early church and Christianity? The fathers who put this religion together had to come up with something to have a scare shit factor, right? So that people will be more easily inclined to convert. It's easier to sell fear, right, than love. That is the truth. People respond more in fear than they will respond in love. Right? Okay, so just again, to contextualize, I believe that there are, as a Buddhist, I adhere to the teachings of Buddhism that in this multiverse there are different dimensions and parallel universes even, where powerful beings and entities come and go. And the ability to actually, the possibility of these beings taking over somebody who is relatively weak. I am not totally dismissing the possibility that could happen. But again, saying that devils and demons from dimensional beings do not prove that there is an ultimate evil. In the same manner that the existence of angels, angelic and extremely divine, powerful beings prove that there is that that there is this God who is a personified being that is taught by mainstream Christianity. Which is why when in one of the encounters with the Buddha, one of the disciples or followers asked the Buddha if the Buddha himself believed in God. The Buddha's response was that's not a very... The Buddha said the question does not fit the case. What basically he means, what are you trying to get to? That question is not really... That's not really matter. Okay. It's not to say that Buddha doesn't think that God or the belief in God is important. Because in Buddhism, ultimately, what it comes down to is not whether you, as a Buddhist, whether you believe in Buddha or not, even, especially Zen Buddhists, in Zen teaching, the most important thing for a Zen Buddhist is to sit, do meditation, to be able to see into the direct reality of things, and in realizing that, in becoming attuned or enlightened, see our connection with everything else, that we are not apart from anything else. So in that connection with others, the proclivity that arises will be a proclivity and tendency for love and kindness and compassion. It does not matter anymore at that point what you believe. Fine, as a Buddhist, I can say I believe in Buddha, but then you ask, how are you living? In the same way as a Christian, you believe in God, but how do you live? And if you are a bad Christian, you can say, well, the devil made me do bad things. It is not the devil. Okay, I will end with this. I've spoken a little bit more than I was supposed to this morning. I will end with this food for thought, and maybe a homework for you guys to chew on or to work on. Food for thought and homework, okay? And which is this: if you really want to find and see the devil, the next time you encounter somebody who is less fortunate than you, treat that person with absolutely zero love, absolutely zero kindness, absolutely zero compassion, then watch the devil appear. And that is you. So I end with that. Thank you for watching this far. And I look forward to your comments, insights, and thoughts below. Please share, like, and I'm hoping to see you again in the next video. Gasho.